Installing stuff is actually pretty scary. Sure, usually, the GitHub page just gives you the exact command to run to install something, but what if you just heard about some command and now you want to install it? Well, now, if you're lazy like me and don't want to Google first, you'll have to just trust it and try to cargo install watchexec. But what if there was an easy and clean way to check what I'm trying to install in the terminal? Well, there is. After you run this command, cargo info will appear for you. And now you can type in cargo info watchexec to see what this package even is. So it's a library. I expected to install a command that I can just use in the terminal, but this is a library, meaning that it's something else, and I don't know the actual path. But very often, the CLI version of a library, you just append -cli to it and you'll get it. However, I do remember how fucking slow it took to install everything and compile this package. What if there was a cleaner way to just install the binary instead of having to recompile everything from source, which Rust does by default? Well, there is a way. Install cargo-binstall. And the way that it works is that you can now cargo-binstall. It will try to search for a ready binary for you, and if it does, it just downloads the binary. But if it can't, it will default to quick install, and if that doesn't work, you just do it normally by compiling. And quick install is another command that does the exact same thing, and this is how you install it. After we install watchexec, what is it actually? This is a terminal program that will run other shell commands for you every time any file in the current directory changes. Alright then, let's try out this command, watchexec poll 0 echo high. First of all, what is poll and why do we need it? You don't necessarily. If you're just using Linux, not having it is probably the better idea. However, I use WSL and watching files doesn't really work for me unless I turn on polling. So that's why I have it here. And then echo high is just the actual command. Let's execute it. It will execute itself immediately once, but then it starts waiting for changes in your files. So let's go to a file and create a new line. And after I save this file, it prints another high. It takes kinda a long time, but not long enough where this is completely useless. Watchexec runs the command first and then waits for the changes in your files. However, if you want to make it not execute the command first, you can use postpone or just -b. The idea of running commands every time that some files change sounds exciting, however it doesn't have that many applications. But one that I can immediately think of is in Rust. Anytime I write Rust code, I also continuously run cargo check, or better yet, cargo-clippy, which should be installed by default, but if it isn't, these commands that I have currently selected are the ones that you should execute in your terminal. So what if instead typing in cargo-clippy every single time, or more realistically using my abbreviation, what if that got done automatically anytime a file is changed? You may be quick to use watchexec here, but actually there is a Rust-specific solution. Install cargo watch, now with binstall, so it's going to be quick, and now we have this horrifying command. Don't worry though, I'm going to explain it. First of all, -q, or -q I guess, is quiet, meaning the output of the cargo watch command itself will not be printed, only the output of the command that you put later. -c will clear your screen every time that a command is run, or rather before it. -x is actually how you define the Rust commands that you want to run. So the first command will be clippy, and then I can even define more commands, which in this case I want to be format. You can then use -d to specify a delay to your command. I don't want any delay, so I put 0. And like in watchexec, I still need polling, so I enable it. However, if you use Linux completely and not on WSL, you probably won't need this. And now after I run that command, let's say I change a file, then save it, wait for a bit, but then the command will rerun. As you can see, now anytime I make a change in a file, cargo-clippy will rerun. I don't use a Git client, and even in VS Code I pretty much use no features of it. However, I made quite a few changes in my .files directory, and I want to stage only some of them. Doing this usually is sort of annoying, so I wonder if I could have a terminal Git client, and obviously I say that because I do. Gitui, also a Rust tool that we can install with this command that I now can use to stage files, create branches, push stuff. I mean, it's all explained here, so I just recommend you go and look. However, by default, navigation is arrow keys, if I remember correctly. To save you the trouble of trying to figure out how to change them, you have to create a file at this path, and here are the contents of it. Funnily enough, it's a configuration file in Rust as well, which is wild, to be fair, very wild. But this is how you get HJKL as navigation keys. Another thing that annoyed me is the fact that I couldn't fucking see all of this at first because they were in bright fucking blue and it was really hard to read. So naturally you can also change the colors that are used here. And to change that, you create a file at this path, which I naturally also have. And by the way, don't worry, all the things I've been listing so far are going to be in the description, as well as figuring out what colors are even allowed here. Coming back to actual gitui though, what I find it most useful for is git adding separate files or all the files in directories, and means that I don't have to pick actual files in Ranger, for example, or in my tool that I made a video on, and I don't have to type in paths as well. This tool has most things you would expect out of a Git client, except some things like Git committing, for example, but it's a great addition to using Git on the terminal. It's very nice when you need to see something a bit more visually, like branches for example, and you can do most actions you would expect you could with this tool. Did you know that you could test the speed of your internet while in the terminal? I think that's amazing. So let's actually run this command and see only part of the output because it actually displays sensitive information. For you it will actually display more. So apparently my download speed is this and my upload speed is this. Very nice when you want to check whether you have an internet connection overall, and even more so checking how fast it is. Going to the website, at least for me, is a bit too slow and annoying, so I never do it. But with a terminal tool, this is much nicer. You know what's even nicer? Rust rewrites of Linux built-in tools, like grep and find. The first one is ripgrep. The usage of it is pretty much the same, except the -r flag is there automatically. However, it's much faster. And here's the second one, find. Now this one isn't just speed, it actually solved a real issue that I had. I wrote this abstraction in Fish to solve that, and it's not quite perfect. All I wanted to do is just ignore things that you're supposed to ignore, like binary folders pretty much. And find doesn't have a convenient way of doing this, to just put it into an abbreviation or an alias. It has to be this fucking annoyingly large abstraction, which is just ridiculous. And it's also limiting. It's not like a great abstraction that doesn't have any downsides. No, it has. You know what doesn't? FD. It actually ignores all the files it's supposed to ignore by default, by reading your git ignore and other stuff. I do recommend looking at the help page of it because it changes pretty much all syntax that find uses, but the syntax FD uses actually much more simple. By default, the search pattern is just regex, and then what you have here is type of directory, and that actually returned nothing because I just recently deleted it. So let's search for gitui. And here it is. It even has colorized output, but obviously disables it when you try to pipe it into another command. So something that I can do is then -x code insiders, which will open this folder in, can you guess where? Code insiders. So similar to find, you can use the -x, but there I don't even know what it was. I guess exec. Here is just -x. Or exec, I think, and then the name of the command. At the end of it, it assumes the full path to the file. However, it has a lot of useful other abstractions that you can use explicitly. After you execute so many commands, I'm sure your terminal will pile up with them, and I actually find it kinda annoying. I wish there was a way to automatically refresh things on my most used commands. I'm so sorry, that's the most YouTuber way of saying it, because you know full well, and I knew full well, that I have the solution. Why am I saying it like this, right? Yeah, it's ridiculous, sorry. While this isn't a Rust tool or even a tool specifically, it's more so an ad for fish, the feature of abbreviations. For example, gitui is a command that I'm going to run considerably often, and having it pile up one after another is just ridiculous, very unneeded, because it doesn't actually display any useful information for us. So what if instead we clear the screen after every time that we call this command? Well, we can. In fish or in Z shell with some configuration. And jank. I type in gitui, space, or enter, and now I enter gitui, I go back, and my screen is empty. Why is that the case? Because we cleared the screen. And better yet, with the -x flag, I actually still have scroll back. I can go back and see the commands that I just executed, their output, everything. It's just that all the new stuff is going to be on another screen. I did that for other common commands like ls, for example. It's still here, it's just cleared the screen before giving its output. So depending on what it is, you may want to clear after or clear before. Another two things that I use really often is ranger to go to some directory, and now that directory's path is written into a certain file that I can cd into by typing kd. Both things that don't really need to appear on my screen, so they are automatically clearing my screen. So all that isn't really a tool, it's just a suggestion of how you should be making abbreviations perhaps. It takes more effort, for sure, but maybe for things that really don't need you looking at the whole screen, you could implement a clear -x. And if you enjoyed this video, press a like, type some comment, maybe you have a question or suggestion. Definitely subscribe so you don't miss my content, but most importantly, stay fresh, cheese bags, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!